Hello, my name is Wanchi. Thank you for joining me in this video. Thank you to the President-elect Lynn Kleisler at VMTA for accepting and inviting me to present my topic. My topic is called Practicing Efficiently Using Limited Resources or Just That Piece of Music right in front of you. Before I dive into it, I want to mention the disclaimer. And actually, I have a few disclaimers. Number one, I have not done anything like this for more than 5 minutes over a video for an audience. So if you hear me stammer or stuttering occasionally, please forgive me. Occasionally, I do need some time to think and find the appropriate words. So this is a very, very good experience for me to do this. So I thank Lynn for giving me this wonderful opportunity to do this. The other disclaimer that I would like to make is that my topic suggests that that there is a possibility that we may not have to buy any more etude books or scales from this point on. And I want everybody to know that that is not what I meant at all. I am very supportive of using all the famous, well-established and long-published etude books, the etude regimen, scale regimen out there that's existed in violin repertoire. I myself, when I was growing up, I follow a very strict regimen of etudes, scales, and repertoire. But because ever since I've been teaching at the university, I noticed that my students are juggling with many different activities, namely their general education classes, the required music classes, required ensembles, and not to mention their much needed downtime with their friends and parents. And I suspect that your students may be doing the same. I noticed that even efficient time managers find it difficult to keep up the daily regimen of scales, etudes, and repertoire routine. Over time, many tend to dive straight into their repertoire. And I'm guilty of this myself, especially now that my schedule is very busy. I have about 18 to 20 university or more university majors, violin majors. And oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this. If you don't already know, I have been teaching full-time here at the James Madison University School of Music for the last 23 or 24 years, basically since 1998. And I'm going to stop for a while because I hear my dog barking. So here I'm back again. So to continue where I left off, my focus in this presentation is to show a number of music examples representing different skill levels and how I would approach it as a violinist and as a teacher. I will demonstrate isolating challenging measures and how to practice them. In other words, use the current excerpt and repertoire students are working on and get the best out of them. So right now, I would like to start off the two most fundamental technique in violin playing. The number one thing that I would like to do is called the détaché. And the way I describe détaché to my students is an extremely legato stroke. Basically, it sounds as if that the sound is being glued um, from one to the other. And the bow pressure, the bow speed, the bow changes are seamless and as unnoticeable as possible. So I would like to demonstrate that and to show you what that should sound like. First on the open string. As you can hear, that is a very legato stroke, meaning very, very connected. Same kind of dynamic, same bow speed, same bow pressure. Now, and then I'm going to see if I could do this on a scale. And so that's in short what détaché stroke should sound like. And the other really, really important technique that I learned from my master teacher when I was doing my doctoral work from Mimi Zweig, Professor Mimi Zweig, she mentioned several very, very important fundamentals that we must review with students regardless of how advanced or how rudimentary they are. And one of them that really stick to my mind is called the bow wandering. And let me quickly demonstrate what that really means. So bow wandering is essentially starting from one part of the bow, going and traveling to the other part of the bow freely. As you can see that I start from the beginning, starting from the tip, and I gradually work my way down to the frog. And now you could be very creative and have the students do a major scale or any kind of scale on bow wandering. So here it is. And by the way, when you demonstrate for the students, please make sure that feel free to play your absolute best and the most gorgeous sound that you could produce, because students, when you demonstrate, they love to hear the best kind of sound quality that you could that is produced by a violin. And so bow wandering is extremely important, and that you could use it for détaché. And the next technique that I would like to address is called the martelé stroke. And again, martelé stroke, there is a really wonderful formula that Mimi taught me in her pedagogy class, and it was so simple and so easy to remember, and it's bow speed plus stop bows. And this is what martelé sounds like. In the middle, and the frog. So the key to the martelé is that you do want to make sure that the student grab the string very firmly after the bow speed. So I'm gonna come a little closer and show you what the grabbing looks like. So I press down immediately, after my bow speed, and if you could see that my bow is going to move the string a little bit, you see that it's very, very firmly grabbed onto the string. And this is very important. Many students, they make a mistake by doing, and you see how it's very loosely um, done after the bow speed, and that is not correct martelé. So please make sure that the correct martelé is that they grasp onto their string very, very firmly immediately after the bow speed. And again, you could do martelé on bow wandering on a scale. So I'm going to use a different scale now. So, and it's not easy, you know, once you have the martelé stroke, the détaché stroke, it's not easy to combine it with bow wandering. So, and this is why it's good to get very creative, and I'm sure all you teachers out there are very creative to challenge the students so they don't get bored reviewing these fundamentals. So the other thing I would like to demonstrate is called, it actually kind of comes from the martelé stroke. It's called the left hand fingers before bow. And in the Suzuki books, there is this piece called perpetual motion. And I believe it's in A major. And this is how I would work with them on left hand before bow. So that's just a first phrase of it. And again, you could use this piece and have them exercise their bow wandering technique. They could start with up bow if you want them to. So I'm going to try to start up bow using bow wandering. So that's just an example of putting all the techniques together, basically the three fundamentals together. And again, you could do it in détaché. Now, speaking of détaché, we often think of détaché as separate bows, which is true. It's a detached bow, meaning separate bows. But détaché could also extend to slur bowings. And here's an example of détaché that's in slur bowings. You could play it softer. So the idea is, even though they're slur, the idea of my bow change is still very, very connected, very legato. So that is the concept of détaché. And again, it has nothing to do with the length of the bow. Your bow length could be as short as 1 inch or as long as hobo. So, and with that in mind, we're gonna go to our more advanced uh, excerpt. And I'm gonna take a little break. Well, here I'm back again. I was feeling very warm, so I remove one of my sweater, my red sweater. So we were continuing off our second or third, maybe this is a little slightly more advanced example. And recently, I performed my a very nice holiday fest concert with our JMU orchestra, and the repertoire was the Vivaldi's Winter. And I was thinking as I was working through this piece in the last couple weeks that this piece is really perfect for all skill levels. It could be a kid who just studied violin for a couple years to someone who is a complete professional. And so as I was working through this, I was thinking, wow, um, I, uh, you know, the way I practice this was I use pretty much 90% of the time I was working with my détaché for the piece. So I want to show you the first movement, for example. Um, so the way it sounded is, I'll show you the way it should sound with a solo, and then I'll demonstrate how I practiced it. So. So that's it. That's the when the first solo started. As you could see in my technique that I was using détaché and bow wandering, as simple as that. And so when I was practicing this, I actually started off slowly, but again, détaché. You're gonna hear that word so much throughout this presentation because it's such an important fundamental. So the way I did it was I started with a softer dynamic, but I make sure that I really listen to the connection between my notes and especially my string crossings, just to make sure that it really as smooth as possible. Mm. So as I was doing that, I wanted to also add in a little bit of bow wandering just so I can increase my flexibility. So that's just to give you an idea of what I did. And of course, I try out with different dynamic levels, but still, we we do détaché. I did détaché. So that word keeps coming back. You're gonna hear 1,000 times of me talking about détaché. Now, I'm gonna move on to the third movement because the third movement start to have notes that has dots over it, meaning off the string stroke. Now, I usually, when I look at the dots, I always still start with my détaché stroke. For instance, I'm going to demonstrate this part that very often this is what it sounds like. So you can see that I was playing with on string and then sometimes it comes off. But the way I practice this is I start with this. I purposely try to make it so super détaché because it's actually quite hard to do that. Um, uh, and the reason I do that is so I could feel what my direction musically is going to go and how my left hand, my right hand would be coordinated. Um, and then again, you could use our bow wandering technique. You could start with a different, instead of starting down bow, you start with up bow just to increase your general flexibility. And and then when I get very comfortable with my détaché, the coming off the stroke becomes so much easier. So I am really talking from my experience of just practicing and figuring things out for myself for many years. I always go back to my détaché. That's always my go-to stroke for everything that that that's presented in front of me, including contemporary music, including with different genre, chamber music, orchestra excerpts. I always start with just a very connected stroke. And so let's take another break because I need to figure out where, and what my next excerpt will be. Okay, so here I am again, and I think I already demonstrated focusing more on the bow part of the challenges. I would like to also address a little bit of the left hand, and and going all the way back to the beginning, the pre-twinkle. By the way, we do teach détaché martelé, bow wandering, bow of circles, um, pretty much before we teach the Suzuki Book One's twinkle. So what we call the pre-twinkle fundamentals with the bow hand. So I would like to just address a little bit of the challenges that we may face for our students' left hand. Um, Again, this is going back all the way in the beginning. Usually we start assuming that they already have a good grasp on how to hold their violin on their left shoulders independently, like what I'm doing. Um, uh, we usually, before we start with the bow, we start with the left hand pizzicato at a higher position. So, we generally have the student slide up and down, just so they get used to not getting too tense with grabbing onto the neck of the violin. So I usually have them slide up to about fifth, sixth, seventh position area and have them use their pinky to do open string pizzicatos. And the reason I use pinky to pits is because this is a perfect setup for their left hand. As you can see, when we pits with our pinky, the hand is turned towards our left side, and that is a perfect left hand position. Now, many students, when they first come to me, they have their hand sometimes, open up like this, and then they adjust, they open up like this. So, and I'm guilty of this. I don't do enough of the left hand pizzicato with them to secure their left hand, their proper left hand position. So I think this is something that I would highly recommend teachers have their students review, is to create some rhythmic patterns for the students to do some fun loud pizzicato exercises. And here's one example that I just I'm creating right on the spot. Rest, rest, rest. And you could do something such as syncopation if you have students who are very advanced. And I'm trying to see if I can create something right on the spot. How about this? Rest, rest, rest. Rest. And of course, you could engage the students to write these rhythmic patterns down, or you could do it and make it accumulation, a compilation of exercises for them to do, and for them to teach their students later on as well. So I think these left hand positions, it's important because as I was demonstrating this Vivaldi third movement earlier, I have another spot where I can show you that when it gets to the higher positions, that it's important that the hand position remain at pretty much the same form. So I'm gonna do slowly, just starting here. As you can see that right now I'm playing it slowly, but you could see that there were several shifts going on from the third position all the way to five or six positions, seventh positions, and because this passage goes very, very fast. And of course you could always have students start with uh, with the scales, have them go up and down, but the idea of having the pinky as if you are doing the left hand pizzicato, and staying face rather to the left, more so than opening it up, would save a lot of extra unnecessary effort of the shift. So I hope that this covers a little bit of the left hand challenge that you may face with your students. And also with the sliding up and down, we are encouraging the students that thumb really should be sliding together with the rest of the hand. So it's not sliding this part of the hand first and then the thumb, this part and then the thumb. We have them do these exercises for a purpose of that everything moves together and simultaneously. So I think this will conclude my video presentation, and I am very pleased that I'm actually um, am able to do this for more than 5 minutes at a time. So thanks again, everybody, for joining me. And if you have any questions, please reach out to Lynn. She has my contact information, and I hope to see you in person in the near future when we can all meet as a group. Thank you.